welcome to D6 Damage. As you are no doubt aware, the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Playtest recently hit store shelves. I picked up my copy today, and I have been looking through it, eagerly trying to figure out what new changes Paizo's made, and how I feel about them. First off, I'd like to begin by thanking Paizo for giving us, the players, an opportunity to participate in the crafting of the Pathfinder experience. That's an awesome gesture. Thanks, guys. Now, I haven't had a chance to look through everything. I've kind of been jumping around, looking at the things that I found interesting and trying to see the big changes that happened. I'm going to start with the things that I feel positive about, or I think were a good idea, or I think have potential. I want to start off with the feats. Pathfinder Volume 2 has more feats, and it has more types of feats. You have ancestry or racial feats, you have class feats, and you have general feats. Now, depending on the character and the class you play, you're going to get access to these different feats at different times. I've looked at some of them, and I'm not sure how great they are. Some of them seem like they're going to be cool and useful, others not so much, but that is kind of true of the original Pathfinder. Honestly, I think it was a good idea for them to take this different direction, because Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition made the feats harder to get, but really good. I think it's good that Paizo's doing their own thing. Another thing that I was really happy to see are the fact that they did not entirely get rid of penalties. As an example, dwarves, gnomes, and halflings all have a 20-foot movement speed. Also, there are ability score penalties, like the elf hit to constitution is still there. I think that's a good choice. I think that there need to be benefits and penalties for playing what you play. Another change, which I think was interesting and I really want to see how it plays out, are the changes that they made to AC. Fortunately, they kept touch AC as well as regular AC. I thought that was a good choice, because touch AC really does make sense for certain attacks. A change that they did make was certain types of armor will give you bonuses to touch AC. Another interesting choice that I think is cool, and I want to see how it works, are the changes they made to the base attack bonus, which has now been sort of transformed into the Proficiency Bonus. A little bit like 5e, but they've done it slightly differently. In Pathfinder, you have a Proficiency Bonus, and this is equal to your level if I've understood the book correctly. It's entirely possible that I didn't, and if so, please correct me. In addition to your Proficiency Bonus, the actions that you're performing and the skills you're using can be either trained, expert, legendary, and I think there's one more status you can have in terms of your ability to perform the action. If you're untrained, you take a -1 to your roll. If you're trained, flat roll. If you're an expert, you get a bonus. If you're legendary, you get a really big bonus because you're the most awesomest dude who's ever done this thing that you're doing. Now on to something they did that I think a lot of you are going to be really happy with. Goblins seem to be a major race in Galarian and the Paizoverse. I know that goblins have kind of been Paizo's mascot for a while, and it's cool that the little green son-of-a-guns are getting their moment to shine. I've had a look at some of their racial feats and other stuff, and it seems like they're going to be just a big old green ball of fun. I don't know if I entirely agree with them getting a bonus to charisma, but maybe. Next up, half-elf and half-orc are basically racial archetypes for human. That's an interesting idea, and I want to see how it plays out. It's cool, and I think it's a nice way to organize things. In fact, I'd sort of like to see more racial archetypes. That's something that I really did like about 5th edition. Like, I liked the different kind of elves you can play, the different kind of gnomes. I thought all of that was really cool stuff. And it would be neat to have it in Pathfinder 2. The final thing I saw that I definitely know I liked in this preliminary look-through is that there are different types of magic beyond Arcane and Divine now. There are 4 types of magic. There's good old arcane, good old divine, occult is now of equal standing, and primal. Each of the different types of magic has its own spellcasting list, and the different casting classes have access to one of the lists. As an example, wizards, of course, are going to go from the arcane spell list. Interestingly, they gave bards the occult spell list. Druids are naturally going to have the primal spell list, clerics the divine. But the really interesting thing they did is with sorcerers, who get a different type of magic based on their bloodline. I thought that was a great decision. I think playing a sorcerer is going to be really awesome. If I was going to critique these new types of magic, I would say, what really is the difference between arcane and occult, or divine and primal? You know? It's like, what makes those different from one another? Okay, moving on from the changes that I feel good about and I'm excited about to changes that I'm kind of indifferent to. It's like, okay, it's different. First off, there is the ability scores. If you're familiar at all with Starfinder, you're going to be able to do this. It's very similar. You're going to get fairly steady bonuses to your ability scores, and when you get your ability score increases, you're going to be increasing 4 different ability scores. But if you're trying to go beyond 18 with any ability, you're going to only be able to increase it by a smaller amount. If you're under 18, you're going to go up by 2. If you're over 18, you can only go up by 1. Now, if you're a fan of min-maxing, which I confess I am, it's going to be more difficult for you to make those characters that are just broke the hell off in one specific way. It's too bad. I understand it. I think it sort of means that by the end, the characters are maybe going to feel a little bit samey because you're really good at everything. But, you know, that's not a huge problem, really. All right, next up, another holdover from Starfinder, bulk. Carry weight is muy importante. Items aren't arranged by specific pounds. They're organized by bulk. You have light items, and a certain number of light items adds up to 1 bulk. And your character has a specific amount of bulk that they can carry. Another change I'm not super excited about is the changes that they've made to the skills. This feels kind of 5th edition-y. Basically, we have a number of skills, and we have proficiency with those skills. Interestingly, your proficiency with a skill opens up additional ways for you to use that skill, and I think I'd like to see what you get on the higher levels, like what you get if you're not just trained, but an expert, or if you're legendary with a skill, like if you're the most legendary at athletics, well, like what you can do with that. That would be kind of neat. Also, like Starfinder, you calculate your first level HP is you get your racial HP, and then you get your class HP, plus con mod, naturally. After this, you kind of gain HP as normal, but you don't, like, roll a die for it. The values are all kind of set. The final change I'm indifferent to, but I sort of disagree with for kind of a little bit petty reasons, is the fact that they combined basically all of the healing magic into the Necromancy school. Now, this is not an unreasonable thing to do. There's an idea about Necromancy that it's the manipulation of life energy, and that's what you're doing when you're raising skeletons or vampiric touch or what all those things that you do. But for linguistic reasons, I sort of disagree with it. Necro is the Greek word for death. Mancy is a Greco-Latin term for divination or to divine. So I think that for those reasons, I'm sort of unable to separate necromancy from death. I think it is not really about the manipulation of life, but the control of death, and that's what the school is, and gaining power over death. I think of healing and all that stuff. I personally like it essentially put into its own school, but that's just me, and I don't really have a problem with it being done differently. All right, finally, the choices that I am not liking. First off, this is a big one, spells. I have not had a chance to thoroughly look at the Pathfinder Playtest Bestiary, so I don't know how much damage things are going to have and how hard they are to hit, but just based on what I'm looking at, it seems like the spells are feeling very underpowered compared to the original Pathfinder. Just as an example, Shocking Grasp now does 1d12 plus your casting modifier of damage. That's just not enough. Much like 5e, they've given you the ability to cast the spells at a higher level to do more damage. I will say, in the playtest's good column for this, you seem like you are going to have the spells to throw around, but still, you always, when you're relying on that one die, there are going to be those moments where it's like, I roll my d12, I get a 3. That's going to happen. And from what I saw, the contrips don't really compete with 5e contrips. Next up, I'm not saying that this doesn't exist. I'm saying that I didn't see it and I looked pretty hard. There does not seem to be a way to create undead minions, a la Animate Dead or Create Undead. And if Paizo's going full Hannibal Traven on us, I think that most of us here on D6 Damage are gonna be more on the Manny Marco side. We want to do our necromancy. We want the skeletons, we want the zombies, we want to go the whole 9 yards. So come on, Paizo, don't take my skeletons from me. I need them. The closest that I found was an ability to essentially seize control of some random wandering undead and make it your follower or your minion. And that's just not enough. You know, I like to customize these things. I want them to be my undead. Finally, it seems like every spellcaster gets 3 spell slots at max per spell level. I know for a fact that wizards get an additional one based on schools. Hopefully there's something analogous for the other classes to give them a little bit more to work with. Because a big problem in 5th, if you're playing a spellcaster, is you run out of ammo really quickly. And that combined with the fact that it doesn't hit hard enough, it really makes playing a caster, especially at lower levels that most campaigns are going to take place at, kind of not worth it. Alright, my following problems with the playtest are a little bit on the petty side. I'm sure that once I play an actual game, I'll be able to get much more in detail about my thoughts. But I don't like the fact that the book uses these weird symbols for action, reaction, and free action. I'm sure that this is the kind of thing you get used to, and by the time I've had the book for a few months, I'm just going to immediately recognize them and I'll have gotten used to it. But at the moment, it's kind of like I'm looking at it and what the hell does that weird diamond thing mean again? Also, I don't really like the art style they went with. They went with this kind of sketchy sort of really, it reminds me of the 3.5 D&D Player's Handbook, and I just didn't think that handbook looked particularly good. I like a lot of the Paizo illustrations. I think the 5e handbook looks really good. Color, man. It's important. Finally, multiclassing is looking complicated. If I've understood my brief reading of multiclassing correctly, if you want to multiclass, you're essentially going to be taking feats that allow you to get things from another class. So if you want to say multiclass as a wizard, you get you spend a feat, you get wizard stuff, and it's kind of a feat tree to give you wizard stuff. It's an interesting idea, and we'll see how it works, but at the moment it seems unnecessary. Anyway, those are my thoughts about my preliminary view of the Pathfinder 2e playtest. Once I've had a chance to look more in depth at everything and play actual games, I'll definitely fill you in on what I think, how it was, and I'm talking to the Dice Bag crew. Hopefully we're going to get a chance to play the Pathfinder Playtest module, and if I can get that recorded and put up, I'm definitely going to do that. Anyway, thanks so much for watching D6 Damage. If you're interested in more videos about Pathfinder and Dungeons & Dragons, check us out right here on YouTube.